Oh boy, 2 history lessons in a row. I wish they'd taught it like this when I was in school. The Cartwrights are on the bank of the river getting ready to take a bath. So there's this cartoon that was made of the Cartwrights taking a bath together in the same tub years ago when the show was still running, and it just takes my brain straight to that. YouTube's own Barbo did a video recently talking about that sketch, and I'll link it in the description. She also does videos about the show, so go give her channel some love. Sadly, they missed the opportunity in the opening of this episode to give us a bunch of naked Cartwrights. Let us all just take a moment and contemplate what might have been, especially us Adam Gals and Ben Gals, because Hoss and Joe both get at least one bathtub scene apiece during the course of the show's run, but the rest of us never get that sweet sudsy fix. I mean, would it have hurt Purnell to hop into a tub at least once? I can think of at least 3 times when he could have really benefited from a scrub. Okay, focus, Bonanza Babe. Focus. Alright, I'm back. Accompanied by some rather hokey music, an old prospector with a rifle shows up and tells them to get off of his land. Knowing that they are, in fact, on the Ponderosa, the boys protest. The man shows them a bill of sale signed by a Henry T.P. Comstock. He sold the Ponderosa for a measly $25, people. The Cartwrights begin to laugh, and you can see this older fella is creeped out in real time as he watches the Cartwrights fade into a flashback mode that nobody but them can see. Somehow they're also able to recall back to a scene that they weren't even in. But that's the magic of movie making, folks. The sky is a pretty blue with a splash of pink, as some men who had their claims jumped are fixing to hang Henry T.P. from atop his mule Dorothy, when he asks to talk to God one last time before he goes to meet him in person. He uses this little confessional to slip into conversation that the place where they're standing now is now called Placerville, and that hanging has been outlawed. As an aside, they claim that this tree has been used to hang 28 men and a woman. Jeez, you just gotta wonder what she did, man. They agree to take him to where it's still legal to string a man up, and that's where he meets our main men. Ben and the boys are cutting down a tree and planting one in its place. Joe says that it took 4 hours to fell this one tree, and it's been alive for 400 years. Ben makes a beautiful speech about taking care of the land, during which Lauren does an amazing job of conveying such passion that you believe this man truly does love God's country. Adam shares with them his dream of a railroad, and the boys tease him for it, like brothers do. You can see the similarities between Adam and his father in how they both dream. I imagine that Ben was about the age Adam is in this episode when he became Adam's father and headed west to build what is now the Ponderosa. It's a subtle and lovely comparison that's done very well. They hear shots, and it's mentioned that the sound came from the California side of the Ponderosa. This means that the ranch is in both California and Nevada. Really cool little detail there. They see this man on a mule being outnumbered and decide to help out. They each try to outdo each other with shooting tricks, and I am so here for it. Hoss knocks off one of the men's hats. Adam hits a water canteen, and Joe actually draws blood when he hits a man's arm. Ben seems less interested in showing off, but takes apart one of their rifles with his shot anyhow. Way to keep it cool, Pa. We see you. Comstock promises God that he'll go straight from now on if he lives through this. He reminds me of a lot of Howard Duff's portrayal of Mark Twain and how he speaks and how he spins a tale. Only Twain was a bit more honest. Ben has him figured out and accuses him of jumping somebody's claim. When he tells the good Lord to strike him dead if he's lying, Joe fires a shot, and we can insert a chef's kiss right here because that is beautiful. Ben invites him to dinner, and the table spread looks amazing, particularly the wine. The color looks rich and very tasty. Comstock's way of speaking confuses Hop Sing, and Ben inquires after his old friend Sutter in California, who has been driven mad by the gold rush. Ben offers Comstock a job, and the idea of working with his hands makes him liken to faint. Ben explains that he doesn't like the practice of panning for gold because of what it does to the land and the minds of the men doing it. And again, Green's delivery is absolutely perfect. Joe decides that he wants to go in town to the dance, and Hoss does too. Adam, being Adam, goes back to work instead, and the boys offer to save him a big woman for later. There'll be another time later when Hoss wants to give Adam a big dance partner later on in the show. After Adam leaves the house, Joe makes a comment about how he'd like to surprise him with a beautiful woman. And the line itself can be picked apart by today's standards and is cringy if you think about it for too long. But Mike is just so dang cute that you forget all about that. If you're a fan of the underdeveloped relationship between these two like I am, you might notice how Joe really does show his love for his eldest brother when Adam's not in the room to hear it. Speaking of when someone leaves the room, when the other two are gone, Ben tells Hoss that Joe's ma was all woman, and his ma was all woman, and Adam's ma was all woman. It was meant as a sweet line, but it always makes me laugh the way that it sounds when Ben says it out loud. Hoss and Joe are following behind Comstock, and Joe tries to surmise which one he is. Rich man, poor man, beggar man, or thief. Hoss says he's probably been all four at some point in his life. They look on as he gives his mule an ear of corn. I can honestly say I've never seen a horse or a mule eaten an ear of corn. If you have, let me know, because I have never seen that. Joe goes away to cause some trouble with the Paiutes, and Hoss goes to keep Comstock out of trouble with the panhandlers. I have to say, this is one of those episodes where I think the portrayal of the Indians could have been done a lot better. In other episodes, including one we've already seen earlier in the show, the Paiutes are given more character and are made to seem smarter and have realer emotions. See my review for the Paiute War. It does make me cringe in this one, mostly because I've seen it done so much better. Joe gives Saratucci, daughter of the chief, some blue silk to make a dress from, and tells her to sneak to the dance with him later on. That Joe. He sure does like to tell women to sneak off with him, and he also likes to see gals bathe. More on that when we get to the turkey strip episode. He even tells the chief as much in this episode. Yeesh. Ben sure did have his hands full with that boy. He calls her a princess several times, and they feed him comfort food in the form of cooked rattlesnake. Yummy. He mentions that he got Cooch in a trade with them some time ago. Interesting how he got Cochise from Paiutes and named him after the Apache chief. Hoss, meanwhile, is having a time keeping Comstock in check as he decides to claim that the land that these men have been panning for gold on is his. He makes a friend and offers the man $17 to be his partner. The guy is thrilled like it was $1,700. I wonder if $17 was just that much money back then. At the dance, Hoss is dancing with a big gal who has 2 different kinds of whiskey bought for her. She downs them both, like a lady. Joe walks in and tosses his hat up on the antlers of a deer head hanging on the wall. He then introduces Princess Sarah to the whole room, and I can't help but wonder what in the Sam hell he thinks he's doing. He was really being smooth up until that point. He was doing so good. Hoss mentions dancing with Comstock, and Comstock makes a big story of an injury, until Hoss assures him that it isn't the big lady he's offering for him to dance with, but Hoss himself. Watching Hoss and Henry dance for the few seconds that we get is an absolute sheer delight. The chief comes in and breaks up the party, though, and introduces Joe to the brave that Saratucci is supposed to marry. Joe doesn't know when to give up, and her intended is about to strike at him when Adam's gun fires and hits him in the hand. He says few words in this scene, yet Purnell chews it up like a pro with just his movements. Ben tells Winnemucca that he will punish Joe, but no one else will. Again, subtly telling us what a great father he is. The big gal is thrown at Adam, who she swings around like a pillowcase. He looks so thin and tiny next to her, and it's kind of adorable. Henry's partner comes in and says that there's been a strike of gold. Instead of jumping a claim for once, Henry jumps the gun and sells everything for $100 apiece, and then realizes too late that he just sold a huge strike of gold for way less money than it would have been worth. That really must hurt a guy like him. Everyone's been complaining about that useless silver stuff for so long that What could he do? I mean, he didn't know any better. He does get one final win, though, as he is able to name the town, and thus Virginia City is born and baptized by spilled whiskey. Back in current times, the boys decide to honor their departed friend, which indicates that old TP has bit the dust since then. They all pitch in, give the old-timer his money back, and keep the bogus claim paper as a memento, which I do think is kind of cute. This is a good one for the most part. I will say that I think the B story with the Paiutes is a bit too much, and we could have done without it. It doesn't really add anything, and it takes away from the point of the episode. The Wild Man and Mark Twain had the same problem, but that B story was a bit more entertaining than this one, and a lot less cringy. It wasn't without its faults, but this one I think is just a little bit worse. If the acting from the Indians had been a little better and been put more in depth, I might have felt differently. Henry Comstock of real life was a miner who was born in Canada. His Comstock lode really was in Virginia City, and it was the richest silver mine in U.S. history. Henry died in Montana in 1870. His manner of death was self-inflicted, and I'm glad they don't mention that in this episode because it would have taken away from the tone that they were trying to reach here. Jack Carson does a great job playing a man who can twirl his tongue and con anyone. I very much recommend this episode. But let me know what you think.